If you look at it, good. I'm glad we're finally recording. If you look at the pricing, it costs about $6 a crutch tip, and you can make one on a 3D printer for about $1.50. Oh, look at all that money you're saving. But man, somebody falls, and how much money did you save? So what are these people thinking?
Right, and can you print with a material that's rubber-like?
You can print with flexibles, TPU, for example, that are actually fairly strong, have good interlayer kinds of adhesion, but still, there are some things going on the underside of rubber and its durability and just its mechanical properties that are going to be hard to reproduce. They'll have embedded metal parts to provide additional reinforcement. But these guys aren't thinking that. They're thinking, oh, I bet I can go to Thingiverse and I can find a model that I can just turn.
I can save $1.50. Walker skis, I could see. Crutch tips, I don't know. But right, I get you.
So to that end, when I'm working with incoming students, whether they're OT students or engineering students who are taking device requests or identifying AT needs, my instruction to them is once you've identified the need for a device or the potential benefit of a device, the first question you need to ask is what already exists. Because I tell them there are very few instances where the person you're working with is the first person ever to have this problem or this need. Someone has almost undoubtedly tried to solve this problem before, maybe not successfully, or maybe what's on the market isn't a good fit for the person you're working with. But that needs to be the first step of their process. And I think, Scout, to your point about I don't think it's a question of, is this a good idea for a session? It is. But one of the points I think to consider is, admittedly, I've never been to Power Up. I'm not sure who the audience there is, but I think the way you approach the next question of if I think something needs to be designed or created, the background and the training that each of those people has really is going to inform how they approach the question. And so making sure that people understand basic design principles, have some background in disability and rehabilitation. Those are completely different things. And taking stock of your own skill set, where the gaps are, where the opportunities are, is really important. And I don't know that enough, at least of the primarily students, but even some of the professionals I work with, think through where they're coming from as they're approaching the question.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even just this morning, I was looking at something that I had put on a slide for a presentation I'd done, and it's just a simple little DIY. You cut off like a shampoo bottle and just make an extender for the faucet, so the water will come out like 6 or 8 inches further into the sink. And as I was talking to a woman from DMH, was like, okay, but this could be super thin and somebody could get cut because those bottles aren't made to be, hit. They're a solid piece. And just all those little things, even though, it's not weight bearing, it's, all these things, that's not really a safety factor in a lot of ways, but anything you do, then people are going to interact with it, and how they interact with it shall not cause harm. So I was like, oh, this would actually be a good place for a 3D printed item, because it could be a simple print, but it would be thicker, and it would, somebody bumping it, there would be no threat of harm. But to me, it's like laying out like when is it right, and how do you tell people? You just have to think about all the aspects of it and who could be using it. I regularly used to get people who said, well, can't I just put a ramp in because I'm always going to be pushing my mother. Can't I put a ramp in that's steeper? Like, you can, as long as you never have friends over that might have any mobility impairments, or that drink alcohol, or that do any kinds of things that might make them fall down your front ramp.
And that you're willing to
Um,
rip it back out before you try to sell the house down the road because it's not
Right,
up to code.
right, right. You know, it's like all these things. Can you? Yes, you are the homeowner. You have the right to make dumb decisions. But know that it is not a smart decision.
And have you thought about things like, well, what if we get a freezing rain? And so this is a little more slippery than I'm used to. There is a process in actual product development called requirements gathering. And I don't see that happen very much in this domain, where you really spend time with a customer or several customers trying to get a good handle on all the things that this device needs to be able to do and the environments in which it may exist. People jump right into design and they focus especially on one person. That's something I spoke to in a previous one of these about with Mike. Are we solving a problem for one person? Are we solving a problem for multiple people? Hopefully. But yeah, whoever's doing this needs to spend time thinking about all the possibilities in the environment and how it's going to be used. And yes, is it going to be used by people who are drinking?
And multiple caregivers too. When you're in your situation, the person was assuming they were going to be the only caregiver. But in my situation where I have a school system, not only do we have massive turnover at this moment between the aides that are helping the individuals, the students, but the teachers too. And so is there training or a learning curve for them to use the tool? And will they be using it appropriately once you put it in place and leave it there? You know, how much follow-up do you have to do to see if they're going to misuse what you created?
Right. And I mean, even for a purchase tool, you know, it could take training, but there might already be a video. It's already been kind of, I would assume most products on the market have been kind of idiot tested. And I always think of like Julia Child's recipes. Like they tried to massacre the recipes before they put them in the cookbook. You know, like if you use a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon, you know, will the cake still bake? Will it still look like a cake? You know, those kinds of things. And when you have a tested product, a lot of that has been done. And when you have something you've made, yeah, like where's the liability is one thing, but more importantly, what's the safety risk? Like I'm less worried about getting sued because I might have really good intentions, but I'm, you know, really concerned about saying, hey, this is awesome, and somebody goes out and uses it for somebody where it's not appropriate and someone gets hurt. Like crutch tips. I mean,
And there's
that's
a whole nother phase of the product life cycle that's often missing. And that's the part that occurs after delivery, which is training and support. As soon as that maker has delivered something, they leave, they move on to the next thing. But when that breaks, or when you discover a flaw in the design, there's nobody to come in and revamp it or repair it.
well,
you gotta kind of
and also
commit to the whole thing, or don't commit at all.
right. And what is the lifespan of something that you built? Will the person know when it has come to the end of its useful lifespan, depending again on what it is, but you know, because to me that's also a thing. But right, just training and support is a good one.
There's a lot that can be learned by just looking at how people in the commercial world do something. And there's a reason they do all those steps, because if they didn't do all those steps, they could save a lot of money and return a lot of profit to their shareholders and stuff like that, but they do them all. And if you're not doing them all as a maker, you have to ask yourself the question, why am I not doing them all? It seems to me I'm shortchanging the person I'm trying to serve if I don't do them all.
Yeah, and for me, it feels like there's a balance between like making people so scared of doing something that they do nothing, and doing something and being very thoughtful about it.
But you know, Scott, I want to just say that to some degree that's healthy. People should be a little scared here, because they're also, if they were just operating in their own little shell and only affecting themselves, well, that's one thing. But the fact is, they're now serving someone else too, and that person's expectations and that person's life. So do understand your skill set and where your limitations are. And it's helpful to know that, oh, geez, all these other skills are valuable. Like somebody who can actually document something, not me with my limited literacy skills. But this is where Makers Making Change has the right idea. They bring together teams of people with different skill sets to solve problems. At least that's their vision. And they're kind of set up to do that. So encouraging people to, if you want to do this, fit your cog into this bigger machine where you can add value, but especially the person you're serving gets value. I wish I could, that's one of the things I see as a value of this maker conference, is to let people know that there is a better way to approach these problems. And there are actually existing structures to help with that.
Yeah, so if you're working in a school, or if you're working in a center, I mean, like if you're working in a university, you probably have you have other people you can bring in potentially. I mean, maybe in a school as well, but if you're working in a classroom and you don't feel, I'm just using examples, you don't feel like you have the time. Nobody has the time, and it's not that they don't have the skills to meet to talk about this one thing for this one kid, for this, and then I not that I disagree, but I'm just wondering, like how do you talk about when you move forward, or do you, for the benefit of the child or individual, and when do you sit and wait for that opportunity to pull more minds together?
I would like to put more responsibility on Makers Making Change to get this thing to be more barrier free, so that it's really easy for people to get together with other people with similar needs, to bring in people with additional skills, to comment. Yeah, so you don't have to wait around a long time, but you can just say, I have this need, at least I have a student with this need. I'd like to quickly get together a set of people to brainstorm. That's the kind of thing that Makers Making Change needs to facilitate. But they may not know because they're not hearing it. But don't sit there in the classroom and say, well, I can't solve this on my own. I don't have a lot of time. You know what? But I have a few minutes. I can run to Home Depot this weekend and grab some stuff.
And maybe that kind of collaboration is what social media is even good for. So I can put out, like, here's my idea, here's my Home Depot product. My individual has this and this need or limitation. Am I missing something? What are people's thoughts? Because there are social media platforms that can do that, give some of that feedback, where there's much less barrier. And there's a lot of folks, I mean, from what I've seen on the AT Makers Facebook group, who will give feedback.
Yep. They tend to be
You
a
know,
little more high tech, unfortunately, with their solutions than is perfectly
Yeah.
necessary.
I don't disagree there. And I haven't really found another group like that for more low-tech stuff.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Interesting conversation. I appreciate everybody's input. So it probably will be something. Bill, I can't believe you have never been to Power Up. Ken's been to Power Up.
For
I-
whatever reason, the scheduling most years happened to fall around, was it the same time as AOTA? I have always had a conflict with it.
Oh,
So not that I haven't wanted to, I've just never been able to.
when is AOTA this year? Oh, it's late.
It does not,
months.
yeah, it does not conflict this year. So I am planning to be there this year.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been to Power Up, Scout.
I thought you had.
I know, it just seems like it.
You've been there in spirit.
Well, I mean, maybe I just assumed because Brenda had talked about the key guard guy. And I just assumed that was you.
So this is an in-person conference?
It will be. It always has been, and it will be again. We will have a virtual component.
And it's in Missouri?
Yes,
So
usually Columbia.
I was in Missouri for basic training, but that's about it. And I don't want to go back. Maybe that's it.
To Fort Leonard Wood.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah, no, and personally, for me, a conference has to last several days to make it worth the travel.
we're a day and a half.
Yeah,
It's fairly good. I mean,
I'm sure.
I don't know. I like it.
Like nice to have a virtual.
We're trying to get Mike Murata to present this year. I don't know. David's working on that.
It's nice to have a virtual component at least then.
Yeah, to be able to bring in some speakers that, you know, might not otherwise be able to present, it is nice. That's I feel like a benefit of the last few years. Catherine, where are you? You're muted.
Right outside of Richmond. We're in Henrico County
In Virginia.
in Virginia. Sorry. Mhm. So yeah, it's a little too far for me to go. I've
Yeah,
never heard, I didn't even know about it. So I was just looking it up.
Yeah, understandable. I don't really expect people to travel halfway across the country.
It'd be fun.
It is fun, and you know, like it is in. I've spent the last 25 years or so in Columbia. Now I live in Kansas City, but Columbia is a great city. There's some really other great events there. Power Up just being one of them. All right. Well, does anybody have anything they want to talk about? Any problems that you're tossing out?
Even with this small group, I wondered if we could talk for just a few minutes about the idea for this AT Maker conference. Not wanting to push things too far, or you know, certainly not make any decisions without more folks involved. But a couple of thoughts that I've been wondering about. And forgive me, you know, Ken, I know peripherally of you, but don't really know who all. I think everyone else in this space knows each other better than I know anyone in this space. So in part, I'm curious, what, if any, overlap we see with the small like AT Maker Day part of the ATIA conference, I appreciate, that is industry focused is the goal of that conference, despite having this kind of carved out time. Do we, and I'm asking specifically because I'm a strand advisor for ATIA, and thinking about any, not just conflict of interest is too formal about it, but how do we want to stake out the difference there?
So I
And
can
who's
tell you
the
my-
audience?
I can tell you my vision, why it's different and why I thought it was important to do it.
Yeah,
Because
please.
these other things clearly exist. So there are an AT Maker component to ATI. I've attended that. And there are AT Maker fairs as well, though those used to be more prevalent. I see fewer of them now. But they all have, what they have in common, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, is they have come get hands-on with making something. Okay, and there will be a bunch of people arranged around tables. Okay, we're going to solder this thing together so I can now switch adapt a toy, or we're going to bring this together so I can create a PVC structure of some kind. We're going to show you all the things you can do with these various PVC connectors. But it's very hands-on, make something. And we're going to instruct you. We're going to teach you how to do it. Or Bill Binko brings up his kids from Florida. Well, I guess ATI is in Florida, so they don't bother to come anywhere. They just go to Orlando, and they show the stuff they've made. Okay, and hope to get you excited. I'm not sure exactly what it is. You can talk to the kids and see, oh, these are some really involved kids. So that's what I've seen from those special events associated with conferences. An AT Maker Fair I've never been to, but I imagine a bunch of booths with people showing their maker stuff. Kind of like rep festivals and stuff like that. What I see this being is more instruction for how to be a maker in the first place. Fundamental stuff. Like, how do you become an effective maker? What things should you be concerned about? So I listed a bunch of topics that I know as a maker I'm concerned about, and I've heard other people talk about, like liability. Boy, I'd love to get some lawyer to volunteer some time to talk about liability for makers and for the therapists who get help from makers. And are the Good Samaritan statutes enough to protect you in a court of law? So that's why when I listed all those items, they are not come see me make something or come let me show you how to make something in about 10 minutes, because that's all I'm going to get of your time. But instead, if you went to an AT conference, not an AT Maker conference, but an AT conference, you would hear about techniques and procedures in working with individuals with disabilities, available AT to fit these needs, ways to work together as therapists. But it's all about learning something, and you're getting up to an hour, sometimes a half a day of instruction in this. So that's what I want. I just want makers to be more effective. I see them as being so ineffective every time I hear about stuff. How can they be so? How can they really want to get their work into the hands of other people, as many people as possible? How do you actually make that happen? Yeah, that's the difference I see. And so I see it as more of a conference and less as a workshop or a whatever would be called, where you spend 10 minutes doing something. Make and take, I guess, is the term I heard Scout use. I don't want, I want AT, made AT to become mainstream as an option. We're going to list, so when I go to an AT conference, I want them to show, oh, well, Assistiveware is doing this and somebody else is doing this. Oh, and you can get these DIY solutions as well that are well designed, meet these range of capabilities. They have these limits. So it just becomes another option for people.
So I appreciate all of that, and the distinction there makes sense, and I absolutely see the value there, not as a competitor to something like an ATIA, but it's a different target, different goal. I do think the one time that I attended that AT Maker Fair event, the year that it was in Pittsburgh, that Therese Welcome and Bill Binko headed up a lot of that. It was closer to, I think, the format than you're envisioning than the format you think it was, where there were more, there were hour to 90-minute sessions that looked a lot like an academic conference, that were on some of those broader topics. But there was also I'd say it was probably 50-50 between that and more of the hands-on, come to our booth and we'll show you how to, and Therese will show you how to put together some of her stuff. And being an academic, the style of conference that you described is a lot more appealing to me, and I think is a lot more beneficial for long-term sustainability. Not just, can I learn some interesting technique today? Can I learn how to integrate a new and interesting technique into a workflow, or to build a workflow, or to know what that means, and how my skill set may complement other people. So I think you're on the right track there. For what it's worth, I did see that you had that list, and sorry, I'm looking over here actually at that Google Doc that you had, the list of potential sessions. There are kind of two ways to approach that, which are inviting sessions or inviting submissions for sessions. Maybe the first year or so, it makes more sense to invite sessions to give some structure and some idea of the types of content we're looking for. For what it's worth, for actually a couple of years ago when we hosted the Missouri OT Association, I have built in RedCap an entire submission system for accepting submissions and then scoring submissions with blinded raters, to make those selections that I could pull out and digitally dust off if we ever wanted to implement something like that, just for what it's worth. And also curious, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a question to have offline, but there's the question of who all should be involved. And has anyone talked to Bill Binko about possibly wanting to contribute and be involved? Guy's got a lot of energy and a lot of ideas.
He does, and I can be corrected again, but what I feel like I'm seeing is Bill getting pulled away from AT making and into, he's got a commercial business now.
Yeah.
With his wife. And so when I posted a request to his group, AT makers and users, whatever it is, and asked for suggestions on how, are there any conferences like this? This is what I kind of like to have. And his comment was basically, yeah, there isn't anything. Sorry. I'm thinking, okay.
He didn't really take the bait, did he?
No, he didn't. If he had, it would have been interesting. If he had said, "What, I have to agree. This largely doesn't exist, but it's an interesting thought. Yeah, let me know if anything moves forward here. I'd like to contribute." But no, he basically put it. I think he even said something like, "I only have a limited amount of time these days."
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, you know what? I forgot about that post, and I think you characterized it exactly right. And he's finishing law school right now too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he could talk about liabilities.
That's part of why he went, is he wants to be able to handle or discuss more of the liability issue. And frankly, to be, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here. One of his big issues with ATIA and the broader AT making industry is what he sees as some profiteering on some folks' parts, which I think he's right, and a lack of understanding about some of those liability requirements and legal requirements, and people either being too conservative and not trying new things because they're afraid, or putting things into the market not knowing to how much liability they have exposed themselves. So that may be a potential area where he could have some contribution.
Yeah.
So
I agree. That's kind of a hole for me as to how would you get anyone who's a professional and therefore makes money every day to come contribute to a conference that I would love to say there is no stipend for, or there is no payment for of any kind. You come
agreed.
out of the goodness of your heart, because that's our whole
ethos.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Hey,
Exactly.
all right.
That's our ethos. The other person I'd love to, and maybe this is you, Bill, the other person I'd like to get somebody from academia who's tied into the physical therapy departments to talk about how should I really be training my students? What kind of projects should they actually be getting instead of the ones I've been giving them?
Yeah, and boy, I've got opinions, strong opinions. How much of those correspond to facts, I don't know, but strong opinions about what's being done and whether the motivation is. There's a difference between a project that is motivated by being for the benefit of the end user versus a project that is for the education of a student in the process.
And including the end user and
yeah,
right.
Including versus using.
I would push it a little further even than that, Bill, and I'll be less charitable than you are.
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's done for the ease of the professor.
They
They didn't have to put a lot of work into this. And so I'm able to just kind of put stuff out here and say, go for it, kids. You know, if you're successful, it'll be a freaking miracle. But you know, I can still sit back and review what you've done and give you a grade. The teacher gets the easy assignments, did not put a whole lot of thought into it. The student gets that grade they're searching for out of your class, and the end user, they got somebody interested in them for a little bit of time, but nothing came of it.
You may be right. I don't think that matches with most of what I've seen.
Right.
These things actually take a hell of a lot of work to pull off on the part of the instructor, but it's a point well taken. And I'm sure some folks, well, it's true of any course, different folks put in different amounts of effort. So I'm sure there are some that work that way.
I've had some more direct experience with University of Colorado Boulder, because they were basically given requests from an organization that served disabled individuals. So they didn't have to do anything except get some students to work on it, and then the students could work with individuals who attended that organization, and they did a little bit, but the professor basically put no effort into screening the approaches that the students were taking. He basically said, hands up, do what you think is right. So a lot of garbage got produced, and that was just engineering students. There were no PTs in that at all.
Yeah. Yep.
So I have some additional data. You are much closer to this than I am. I have one data point,
which is absolutely valid and valuable. I'm with you.
I think sometimes it's not out of laziness, but like how fun. What a fun assignment to take somebody with this particular limitation and think about how I can make their life better. But in actuality, you know, what generally comes out is, I'm going to take up your time and let you, you know, talk about yourself and not really produce anything.
We do a lot of stuff Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like the likelihood that anything is actually going to get produced is very low.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff that feels good. Question is it doing good for the end user, and is it educationally beneficial?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, one of the projects that recently came up, I was just like, you know, what came to me is you know, how can these 30 students turn this in for a grade, because it's not safe. Like, I get the whole process, you know, they're taking their steps through the process, but, and not that they should fail the, I don't know, but it was really difficult to say, like, this should stop right here. This should stop and say, you know, you completed your steps, but you cannot take this any further, because this is not tenable, because it's not safe. And that was the toughest one. It's like, I just want you to stop.
And so why isn't that on the, I remember saying to one of the professors who attended one of these meetings, I said, but it seems to me like that's on you. Why isn't it on the professor to say, this isn't safe, you know, and it's a good learning experience for you that this isn't safe for these reasons. And how could you have approached this problem to recognize that it wasn't safe? It's a learning opportunity here, and it's on that professor.
Mm-hmm.
And if that professor needs to team up with an engineering professor as well, not just a professor who will donate some students. Anyway, Bill, I have that as an entry in my brainstormed list of valuable sessions. I couldn't think of anybody I would offer up to do that who I haven't met through this venue, and I'm not happy with any of them.
We'll yeah, as we flesh this idea out, that's one area where I have something to contribute.
Okay,
So,
good.
yeah. All right, thanks. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of those things that have been floating around in my brain. I've been thinking about this a lot. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Great.
Yeah, I do wonder, Bill, since you said the Maker conference in Philadelphia was more like what Ken is talking about, does Bill feel like he's already been there and done that?
I don't know. I really think that was the Therese show for the most part. I think she was the driving force behind that year of it, and because in the past it had been in New Hampshire. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure why it moved that year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, by the way, I don't think Bill views it as the Bill show, because I was bold enough to come back at Bill when he responded, and I said, I don't know, Bill, this sounds like it'd be perfect for you. I don't think I got a response to that at all.
Yeah, he probably hasn't been back and looked at it. So we may want to think down the road. He's got, oh shoot, what's the guy's name? You're right that he's trying to devote more of his time to the company, but in order to do that, he has hired someone who runs a lot of the AT Maker stuff, and I'm blanking on his name right now. So there may be room for that group to still be involved, whether it's Bill directly or not. I think
he hire somebody. What's his source of revenue?
I think the guy is technically an employee of the company. I'm not really sure about that whole relationship.
Okay, it's just rare that a startup like he's trying to create with his wife can afford to hire somebody who's not even working on that. He's working on something else. And that's the value of makers making changes. They have employees.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. Cool.
So at this juncture, I'm going to take a break and say, Catherine, was there anything that you were looking for in this particular meeting? Because we've not hijacked exactly, but just, you know, had some particular topics.
No, nothing specific. I just was looking for a little break in my day to day. But yeah, it was
What-
interesting
yeah.
to hear.
What, are there things that at your school people are making, or that are, trouble spots that you're looking for things? Like, tell us, if you don't mind, a little bit about what's going on there.
Not a whole lot. I mean, we do buy a whole lot of things because there's not a lot of making going on. But now that we have a 3D printer in our department, I have started to just rethink kind of the way we're doing things. Right now, we have a student who's got very complex needs and needs a switch kind of holder for her lap tray. And so I'm just using the lock lines and trying to figure out, and I've 3D printed end caps to those to just try and give more versatility. She definitely needs flexibility in placement. So I'm trying to do things with that, just small stuff right now. I mean, I would love to get more into it, but my other job duties sometimes need attention more.
What?
No.
No, but it's great to be able to, have that 3D printer and look around and see what's out there. I mean, I think that small wins are really nice, like, okay, I've got something that is, flexible, mountable, and, this student benefits. And it's
Right.
something that, especially when it's already out there on Thingiverse or someplace where, you feel confident about it.
Yeah, just small things. I mean, I came from a place where I had access to a shop and people who could help me actually build more things. And now I'm in a school system and I don't really have that kind of access. So it's a little more limiting in the things I can do, even though we have a kind of a building and grounds C&M, I think it's called, people that they do really some nice stuff with wood and build iPad holders and things like that. When you were talking about the liability, it just made me think recently, we've had so many of our iPads for communication get broken in private placement schools. And our department, the C&M department, makes those iPad holders for our school system because they feel comfortable in making it for our school system. But they won't make anything for a private placement student. And so just trying to figure out how, I mean, so many of them have gotten broken. And I belong to a group that all of our counterparts all around Richmond, the area, all the different districts, we all get together quarterly and we talked just about that situation where all the iPads are getting broken. We're paying a significant amount of money to these private schools to, keep our students and hopefully our equipment safe. And it doesn't seem to be working really well. And we can't really make anything necessarily to put in the school. So I've been trying to look at things that are out there that might help protect our investment a little better, but I haven't really found anything that's portable. You can find kiosks that you can hook to a table or something, but it's not something that they can just grab their iPad and go here or there or take it home, each day or that kind of thing. So it is limiting there.
Yeah, my question is it behavior issues, or is it like complex needs and things are getting accidentally hit and dropped?
It could be anything, and that's part of our problem is we get no information other than it's broken and they need another one.
Wow.
But a lot of these students are privately placed because of behavior needs. Not only that, they're in classrooms with other students with behavior needs. So it could come out of other students too. So it could be anything, to be honest. It can also be broken at home, but we don't get much information once it gets broken.
Yeah. Well, I was just
Please
thinking
get the device back. So you can see what the breakage looks like.
Oh yeah, it's usually, yeah.
The broken screen, that's what you're seeing?
All the way down. I mean,
100%.
you know, I can sometimes see the back of the bottom of the iPad. Yeah. I mean, when they do something to it, they really,
Okay, well,
that's it.
good.
So
Complete.
that's probably
Yeah.
behavior stuff
I-
more
yeah.
than an accidental droppage and cracking the screen a little bit.
Pretty much. I mean, typically we're attributing it to a behavior issue of some sort. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think of those RAM mounts with the suction cups, but you know, they're easy enough to undo when you don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you might buy a dozen of those and see if it protects your investment.
Yeah, I mean, our C&M department made something kind of nice that sort of has it's out of wood and it has slots, so you can just slide the iPad in, and they actually for another student made something that kind of goes over and can kind of screw in just lightly, so it can come in and out. But you know, in a pinch, if the student is escalating and the staff kind of sees that, they can prevent him from, you know, taking it out or anything like that, and you know, tossing it across the room or hitting.
But if the whole thing is made of wood and it's not attached to anything, I mean,
It's
what's
attached to the table
oh, okay.
with a, you know, just a little screw underneath the table to just kind of hold it in place. So it does really help in some of our classrooms to protect it. It's just, you know, can't be done in private placement. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, because I made an iPad holder and locked it down, but I was thinking of just complex needs and it being accidentally knocked, and just locked it where you could put it on a wheelchair tray with a, you know, I'm like, I just look in my drawers. Oh, I could make a gate belt,
Yeah.
you know, keep
Right.
that down. But the iPad could be taken out, and or the whole thing could be taken out and thrown.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's-
those kids are a little easier because we can do mounts for those. I mean, you can buy mounts for those that work pretty well as far as that, and damage doesn't occur. But I mean, just I was trying to think of simple things of, okay, let's loop a strap and loop it around the table and maybe hook it to a strap so that at least it's on the table, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've worked with as a para in classrooms of kids with just behavioral issues. And
mhm.
when somebody's getting worked up, the protocol is you get the other kids out of the room. That's your first
Right.
action. So
Certainly.
there isn't a lot of time to go, hold on, I gotta lock this iPad down, or actually
Right.
Chromebook down.
Yeah, that
Right.
too.
Yeah, nor do you want to lock it down 100% of the time,
Yeah.
because you know you want
Right.
to build in self-control. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you want to make it somewhat portable if they're changing classrooms, and going on field trips and things like that. You do want to have it accessible. That's the whole point of having a communication device. And sometimes when they escalate, you also want them to have access to communication to talk about what's
Mhm.
wrong. But some of our guys are just not quite there yet.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
So do you feel better now that you've had a chance to talk about it, even though we couldn't help you at all?
Let it all out. Yes, I feel so much better. Yeah. I might, you know, maybe I'll get some epiphany over Christmas break, you know, and decide, oh, that's what we need to do.
Well, Epiphany, wasn't that January 6th or something like that? Yeah. It'll happen.
It could happen.
It could happen.
Mhm.
Well, we have managed to fill our hour. Anybody have any last things?
I'll add one thing. Just in the last couple of days, I contacted a guy named Irv Shapiro at Make with Tech, because he was creating a replacement for the Thingiverse customizer, which has been broken for a long time. And he's been very supportive, and he's really bought into OpenSCAD. Everything he has is OpenSCAD. you'll see on my list of brainstorms, I think OpenSCAD is where designers should be focused, AT makers. That's where they should be focused, is on that product. So there might be a nice connection between what he's doing. I'm giving him a pretty complex OpenSCAD program to try and make sure his interface supports it all. And what's being taught in, if we have that class in the conference. Just a little side note. It's,
All right.
it's getting better. It's getting better every day.
All right. Well, on that, if that might wrap us up then, we do have another meeting scheduled in January, and Naomi will have those dates that she can share with us or drop in the chat, which it would probably be the only thing in the chat today, I'm guessing. Yep. Yeah. It's been an easy day to chat right out loud. But I would love to have everybody back. Maybe Mike will join us in January. Who knows? We'll see. Other than that, I'll just say thanks, everybody. Thanks for your help with my personal requests and everything else.
Thanks.
Okay.
Have a great
Thanks all.
holiday.
Yeah, you too. All right.